Hey, hope we're doing okay today. Just had a quick message about eternal riches. You see, Jesus said to us that we should not labor after those things which perish, but we should labor after those things which moth and rust and cannot corrupt, and which thieves cannot break in and steal. And just a reminder that our time on the earth is limited. We don't have a particularly long time on the earth. The Bible talks about how sometimes we have 70, sometimes we have 80, sometimes if we're lucky we have beyond that. And yet in those times there's a lot of misery, there's a lot of affliction, there are a lot of trials and a lot of tests. But what we do in this limited time that we have on the earth will then determine our inheritance in the kingdom to come. And the kingdom to come is an eternal kingdom. In the kingdom, if we have our place in the kingdom through the blood of the Messiah, through our righteousness, or the righteousness that is found in the faith of Christ, and through obeying the commandments of Christ, if we are given access into the kingdom to come, then we will be living for eternity, and we're going to have new bodies. And the type of glory that we inherit, the type of inheritance that we have in the kingdom to come, is based upon the way in which we've conducted ourselves in this life. So that compels us to be spiritually minded, to have our mind focused on the kingdom to come, and to have our mind focused on the rewards which are to come. And the rewards that are given to us are based upon the ministry that God has given us, our obedience to the ministry that God has given us. The Bible talks about in a parable of this man who had been given 10 talents, and he used those talents wisely. And when the master came back, he said, because of your faithfulness with what I gave you, now I'm going to make you a ruler over 10 cities. And whilst it's a parable, I do think what it's communicating is the concept of the kingdom to come. That is, if we use the ministry that God has given us effectively to serve the people of God, to try and win souls, then God is going to give us real responsibility, real authority in the kingdom to come. So it might, I know the Bible talks about how we're kings and priests, so it might not seem like we're a king because we don't have the wealth. Or, I mean, we might have wealth, but we don't have the wealth that kings particularly amass. Kings are worth billions of pounds. We may not have the influence, we may not have the authority. Kings have standing armies. Kings have nobles that serve under them. Kings have mansions. We may not have that now, but what it's talking about is that in the kingdom to come, we are going to have those things. Look, John, Peter, these were men that were the fishermen, and yet they were kings. And we are all going to see that, not only hopefully in ourselves, if we endure until the end, but we're also going to see the fullness of that in the kingdom to come. Look at somebody like Paul. Paul was somebody who sold tents. He would not have been a particularly wealthy man. He would not have been a man that had a lot of people, a lot of servants that were working under him. However, in the kingdom to come, when the people of God are in Israel, in the land of Israel, the Israelites that are, when the Israelites are in the land of Israel, because the land of Israel is reserved in the kingdom to come, the land of Israel is reserved for the Israelites as God promised Abraham. So when that comes, Paul, you're going to see Paul, and he's going to be a king. He's going to have a scepter, he's going to have a throne, he's going to have a crown. I even spoke about it in 2 Timothy. He said that there's a crown of righteousness that's been laid for him because of his faith and because of the work which he completed. And we're going to see that they're going to be servants under him. He's going to have great wealth. And these are things that we can inherit as well if we stay eternally minded. You see, Paul was a very good example. Paul was so dedicated to the spiritual work that God had given him that he said, I don't even have time to have a wife. That if I have a wife, then I'm going to be more burdened and bothered about how to please my wife as opposed to pleasing the Lord. So in all things that we do, in every decision that we make, I think what we ought to be asking ourselves is this serving the kingdom of God? Is this completing the Father's business? Is this helping me become spiritually mature? Is this ensuring that I'm going to gain a great inheritance in the kingdom to come? And if so, then it's going to be a good decision. If not, then what we might have to ask ourselves is, should I cut this lifestyle? Should I cut this person? The Bible talks about if your left hand is causing you to sin, then cut it off. So if there's anything that's in your life that's not serving the interests of the kingdom, then it ought to be cut off. That's why Paul said that all, many things are lawful unto me, but they're not expedient. So if there's anything, let's say excessive drinking, yeah, drinking is lawful, but is it expedient? Is it helping you? If it's giving you a hangover, if it's making you more lethargic, is it expedient for you? Is it helping you build the kingdom of God? Is it helping you maximize and the potential and the time that you have before we stand before the Creator? Now, these are all things we're going to give account for. And every single day, in one way or the other, we need to be gaining mastery in what God has given us, so that when the opportunity does arise for us to walk in the fullness of our ministry, that we will not feel like we're lacking confidence in any regard, but that we will feel like we are fully mobilized to make the most of all that is within us in order to glorify God and in order to accrue those heavenly eternal riches which are in store for the righteous.